Thank you, sir. Item A is a request for allocation of a total of $1 million worth of bond funds, specifically to sum up what's in the header there, $382,673.12 from the 1995 bond authorization and $617,326.88 from the 2000 bond authorization. The request is to fund the second year of a unit price contract for small bridge rehabilitation projects on a citywide basis. These are contracts that we started using probably 3 or 4 years ago to assist us in maintenance-type repairs of both small and large bridges across the city that were above and beyond the scope of our street maintenance personnel. The intention is to allow us to address these needs in a more timely manner, in the hope that if we address them in a timely manner, that it will avert a larger repair and correspondingly a more costly repair in the future. As I said, this is the second year of a possible 3-year term on this contract, and we have a couple locations in mind already that we have identified that will use approximately $120,000 worth of this funding, but as you can see, we're asking for $1 million, and that will allow us to draw from those funds throughout the remainder of this current fiscal year to address any other needs that might arise in the small bridge category. Repetitive in what nature? Preventative? Well, it's preventative if you think about it in terms of we are trying to prevent a larger, more costly repair. If we identify a smaller repair that needs to be done, if it was left not completed, it could deteriorate further into a more costly repair in the future. So our objective is to try to identify these repairs when they're small and less costly, have our contractor use the unit prices on those pay items that he's already competitively bid and been awarded the contract to allow us to address those when they're more minor in nature. This specific contract is for bridges. We also have unit price contracts for paving repairs, and we also have one for drainage repairs. But this request is just for bridges. I don't believe we have any of those pay items in the bridge category. That's why we also have a minor storm sewer unit price contracts, and there are occasions where we have to draw from both of those contracts in order to accomplish certain repairs, but there are very few pay items on each one of those contracts that overlap. Yes, sir. Yes. Right. What we are required to do when we determine that either a single project that's a listed project in a specific bond proposition is complete and there are excess funds, or if a complete proposition, all the listed projects within a specific proposition, say in this case bridges, are complete, or, to confuse you even further, if we've allocated funds to say we have 2 or 3 projects that are remaining, but we've already provided more than sufficient funds to complete those, but yet there are still funds from the other projects available, we have to certify that if there are unbuilt projects yet within that same proposition, we have to certify, the city engineer has to certify that funds are available in the amount to complete those projects as specified in the proposition, and thus if we meet those conditions, we can ask you folks to recommend to council to declare those funds surplus and allow us to use those on similar projects within the same purpose of that proposition. Mm-hmm. No. Mm-hmm. Okay, item B is a request for a total of $2.26 million. Again, approximately $183,000 from the 1995 bond authorization, approximately $519,000 from the 2000 bond authorization, and $1.5, almost $1.6 million from the 2007 bond authorization. What this request will fund is the intersection at Northwest 164th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue. The aerial photograph that you see there shows 164th and Penn. Northwest 164th from Penn to Western is presently under construction. Originally, the intersection at 164th and Penn was included in the street widening project from Penn to Western. During the design process and the right-of-way acquisition process, we determined that the right-of-way that was needed just for the intersection was going to cost us in excess of $1 million. We had identified the street widening project for federal funding, and given the cost of the right-of-way and the fact that the various property owners were not being very amenable to our offers, we decided to pull the intersection piece out of the street widening project, proceed with the street widening from Pennsylvania to Western, and come back at a later date and do the intersection work as a separate project. Okay? There are, as you can see, there are numerous energy pipelines that have been somewhat problematic for us in our right-of-way acquisition efforts. The cost for the intersection of $2.2 million is a little bit higher than we would normally anticipate. Normally, when you do an intersection project, you anticipate about 500 feet of street work on each of the four legs of the intersection. This project includes about 750 feet or so, so we're talking about 1,000 more feet of paving at this location, and there are two major storm drainage structures and an associated amount of storm drainage pipe that's associated with this intersection. So that has given rise to a slightly more costly project estimate. We haven't bid the project yet, so ultimately we don't know what the final cost is going to be, but we feel that $2.2 million should get us in the ballpark and provide sufficient funds to bid and actually award the construction contract. Well, as I said, there's additional paving. There's about 1,000 more feet of paving than what is normally contemplated in an intersection project, and there are two major storm drainage structures that you usually don't see, and when you get into the precast concrete and all the pipe that's associated with it, that drives your pipe, your cost estimate up. And again, this is just an estimate, but we feel that it will definitely provide us sufficient funds to go ahead and advertise, bid, and award the ultimate construction contract.
But whenever you have modifications such as this, and there's pipeline right-of-way involved, do you share right-of-way, or do you have to contractually make some kind of arrangement with pipelines for right-of-way?
It all sort of depends on statute, who was there first. For instance, we just got a ruling last week from the court on the DCP line that you see there, that is on the north side of 164th, crosses 164th, and then heads east-west on the south side. We were in a court case with them over whose responsibility it was to actually pay for the lowering of that line that actually crosses the street. I mean, it goes way back into state statutes, actually prior to statehood, as to the section line roads and whether the county commissioners took appropriate action to open the section line. So it's somewhat convoluted. We, in all cases, we make to all of the tenants, if you will, who own easements and actual real property, what we feel is a fair market offer. And then, in this case, with all these energy pipelines, some are currently low enough. In the case of the DCP line, we've got to lower that line significantly in order to build the project, and now we're trying to decide how much of that cost the company's going to bear and how much the city's going to bear. So. Mr. Clytus, from what I understand, what limited information I have of this project, that did come into play back in 1936, and not to drag this out any further, but to kind of give you as much information as I have. In 1936, that DCP pipeline was owned by Phillips Petroleum. And back in 1936, Northwest 164th, although it was a section line road and granted by, I believe, federal law, the Organic Act, the county commissioners of Oklahoma County had not yet taken action to open up that section line for the public improvements. So what Phillips Petroleum did is they went and they got the necessary easements from the abutting property owners, because even though we have a 66-foot public street easement there, legally the property owners own to the center line of the street. So even though the street was not built at the time and the county commissioners had not taken the appropriate action to open up that section line for the paving improvements, Phillips proceeded and got the necessary easements, and as best I can understand the judge's ruling, they have told us that DCP, by virtue of purchasing those easements from Phillips, is in the right, and they are going to have to bear a lesser share of the cost to lower that pipeline than the city would have hoped. Item C is a request for an allocation of a total of $1.2 million, all being from the 2000 bond authorization for purposes of funding our unit price drainage contract. The first item was our unit price bridge contract. This is our unit price drainage contract. This contract, again, very similar to the first one, was bid, and the city and the contractor have the ability to renew it for a period of 2 consecutive years after the original award. I believe we're in the second year, and we're asking for $1.2 million to go ahead and fund drainage repairs that would fall under the category of unit price repairs. We do have a few locations identified that were damaged as part of the June 14th flood event, the 500-year flood event that we experienced, and if approved, we will use a portion of the funds here to make those improvements. The good thing is that 87.5% of those funds that we expend from the bond funds will be reimbursable to the city, 75% from FEMA and 12.5% from the state of Oklahoma Emergency Management. So we'll get 87.5% of the funds that we spend on any of those June 14th repairs back, and they'll be deposited back into the appropriate bond account. So it's not good that we have to make the repairs. We wish that we never had to, but it's good that in the fact that if we use some of these funds on those repairs, we're going to get 87% of the money back. Item D is a request for a total of $200,000, all from the 2000 general obligation bond authorization for a specific project repair, BC 195 at Northeast 150th Street and Choctaw Road. There's an aerial map that shows the project location, far northeast Oklahoma City. This location was damaged extensively, as you can see, in the June 14th flood event. These pictures were taken on June the 16th, 2 days after the event. As you can see in the two photos, top and bottom right, you will see some 60-inch corrugated metal pipe there. That's what was there previously, and prior to this damage, we had already repaired this location one previous time. So this is 2 times now that this location has been damaged with the 2 60-inch pipes in there. We may have learned our lesson a little bit late, but we have decided now, instead of going back with 2 60-inch pipes, we are going to actually build a bridge structure with concrete box underneath it to make a more sturdy structure and hopefully a more flood damage-free type structure. This too will be reimbursable at 87.5% from FEMA and the state of Oklahoma. So we're requesting your approval to allocate the requested $200,000 to allow us to advertise and bid this project. Yes. It's going to be a concrete box with an overlay on top for the paving. Instead of, they will pay. We have not received a final determination from them. they usually pay for just to bring it back to pre-event conditions, but we have been, for lack of a better term, we've been haggling with them over that, because this would fall into a category of what's called mitigation, and by putting an improved structure there, that somewhat alleviates, or hopefully alleviates, the need that we'll come back during the next big flood event and ask them to fix this again. So there's some give and take involved in that. It may not be the whole 87%, it may be somewhat less, but that final, either way, we're going to get reimbursed a certain amount of this money, and hopefully we'll know exactly how much in the next couple of weeks, because they're trying to wrap up all their work on that event. Yes. We're hoping to get 87.5% of it back, but because in the past they have only paid in certain instances to bring it back to what its previous condition was, i.e. put back 2 pipes instead of a concrete box, we may only get that much back. Either way, we're going to get something reimbursed. We just don't know at the moment how much. Yes, sir. Yes. Right now? Yes. The road is closed. Next item, item E, is a request for $150,000 from the 2000 general obligation bond authorization to have some funds from Proposition Number 5, Parks Paving Improvements, be declared as surplus, and have those funds be made available to construct a parking lot in Lafayette Park. As your memo reads, there's a entity there, Variety Care Incorporated, who operates a health clinic for low-income residents adjacent to the park. And back in March of this year, Variety and the City of Oklahoma City entered into a agreement whereby Variety has agreed to reimburse the city for 100% of the material costs, not the labor costs, but the material costs to construct this parking lot, which will be beneficial both for the park when the improvements that were improved in the, I believe it was 2007. In the 2000 bond authorization, once those improvements are completed, the parking lot will be a mutually beneficial improvement both for the park and for the healthcare clinic. And again, Variety has, as part of the agreement that was approved by the council back in March, they will have agreed to reimburse the city 100% of the material costs associated with the construction of the parking lot. So it's kind of a win-win situation for both the city and Variety. Yes, it is. I believe that parking lot, is that the parking lot for the school to the north? Yeah. Lafayette School is there directly to the north, and where you see those cars on the north boundary line, the south boundary of the school, that parking lot there is just for the school. So we're going to build another lot inside the park, right? Do you know where the healthcare? It's in the school. It's the old school. You know how big that is, Larry? Right. So in the end, the only cost that the city will be liable for is the is the labor on the contract, because Variety has agreed to reimburse us for the material costs. Item F is a request for $130,000 from the 2000 General Obligation Bond Proposition Number 9, Library Bond Interest Funds, to Project MB-0860, Ronald J. Nork Downtown Library Entrance Modifications at Park and Hudson. There's the aerial that shows the new library that was built as part of the original MAPS program. Here are some pictures of both the main, which would be the north entrance, and the east entrance. According to the information we have, during the winter months, the type of doors that were actually constructed there, you can see they're automatic sliding doors, allow a substantial amount of cold air to enter the building, making it very difficult for the heat and air controls to maintain a comfortable temperature there. As a result, there's a need to modify both those entrances to the Nork Library. There is some money available in the special purpose fund that we will combine, if approved, with the $130,000 we're asking for here to modify both these entrances to help alleviate that problem they experience during the winter months. Yes, there are going to be the north entrance will be modified by installing a revolving door and improvements, and on the east side they're going to do airlock sliding door modifications at the east entrance.
It seems like I remember there was some modification of these entrances a couple of years ago, or some amount, some time ago.
I don't know. You may be referring to, we did a lot of work on there was an issue having to do with leaks in the building. The windows surrounding the building had a substantial amount of leakage during rainstorms, and there's been some work done in that regard over the last couple of years. That might be what you're referring to.
I was thinking that it was a similar problem with the heating and cooling system with the entrances, and I thought there was some allocation of funds for modification a few years ago.
Okay.
Originally, some of the special purpose money that we haven't gotten from the Southern Downtown Library,
Right.
And it's been before this committee, but it's been on hold forever, and it's not enough money.
So there was a previous allocation of funds that we received from the sale of the old downtown library that were for this same project, but when we got done with the architectural and engineering work, we determined that that money was not sufficient, so here we are again asking for additional funds to fully fund the project.
Okay.
That's what it was. There was an allocation that was requested previously, back in March 18th of 2008, so about 2.5 years ago.
Okay.
So. Item F or item G? Do we have two Fs? The next item, I've got item G on my agenda, I think that says F. It's okay. Is for a request of $125,000 in funds from the 2000 GO bond authorization, proposition number 5, parks paving improvements. We're asking that $125,000 be declared surplus, and those funds be allocated to project MP 415A, parking lot for Eastern Basin boat ramp on the Oklahoma River. Your memo goes into a little bit of detail on this item. Back in 2004, the city entered into a cooperative agreement with the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation to provide public fishing and boating access on the Oklahoma River, in this case in the Eastern Avenue Basin. If you look at what would be the top right corner of the aerial, this aerial is somewhat dated, you will see both the parking lot and the previous ramp that was built there to provide public access for fishing and boating, that we used a combination of federal funds and state funds to build. That agreement said that we had to maintain public fishing and boating access, or else we would basically be in violation of the agreement. Well, back in 2009, when they started construction of the Devon Boathouse, that is in the same vicinity as the old boat ramp and parking lot, those improvements had to be removed to facilitate that construction of the Devon Boathouse, and there are, I think there's going to be a total of 2 additional boathouses downstream there on the north side of the river. Well, when we removed the ramp and the parking lot, we were told in no uncertain terms by the Department of Wildlife Conservation that we either had to replace those improvements that they funded or we had to give them their money back. Well, we didn't really want to give them their money back, and we wanted to help maintain public fishing and boating access, so we found a suitable location upstream slightly on the south side of the river, in the area highlighted there, to build a new ramp, which has been completed, and a parking lot to allow for boaters and fishermen to access and park their trailers. Here are a couple pictures. This is the ramp itself that is under construction, substantially complete, and the funds we are asking for today will allow us to complete the project by construction a parking lot that you see there on the preliminary drawing that will put us back in compliance with the agreement that we signed back in 2004 with the State Department of Wildlife Conservation to maintain public boating and fishing access on the Oklahoma River. You can see the Chesapeake Boathouse is the funny-shaped white building there, and our ramp will be, it will be both upstream, which is west, but on the south side of the river. We chose this location because it would also help the public boaters and fishermen. It would provide some separation from their activities and all of the rowing activities that take place slightly downstream there on the other bank of the river. So, and they'll have access there off of Byers Avenue.
I don't know if I checked the proposition language on, what prop is this? Prop 5? To see if a boat ramp and parking lot fit within a, you don't happen to have that language, do you?
Answer that, Larry? This is Larry Ogle, he's Assistant Parks and Recreation Director.
The river properties were all purchased with 1950 park bond funds. So all of the properties along the river are park properties that the city owns.
Good answer. Should have known that. Our final item for consideration is a request for an allocation of $34,000 from the 2000 General Obligation Bond Authorization, Proposition Number 6, Fire, unlisted funds for citywide fire facility repair and renovations. We're asking that those funds be made available to MB 0947, fire station parking lot repairs at 5 different locations. Your memo lists the 5 stations. Station number 9 on 89th Street, station number 13 on Southeast 74th, station 23 at 28th and Southeastern, station 34 at 86th and North Council, and fire station 35, which is at Southwest 130th and May Avenue in Ward 5. As you can see from the various pictures, we have some failed paving improvements both on the approaches to the fire stations that are in need of repairs. We went out, or actually the fire department took these pictures late last week, so they're very current as to the current paving condition. And here again is the kind of thing where we want to make these repairs when the pavement damage is somewhat limited to a confined area, as opposed to having to replace the whole approach or the whole driveway. And these will be accomplished under a paving unit price contract that the Public Works Department administers, which is used by numerous city departments to make parking lot repairs, driveway repairs to numerous types of city facilities. Public Works administers the contract, administers the claim payment process, but in this case, on these repairs, the fire department, if approved, will use these bond funds to actually pay those invoices on these specific jobs. Thank you. will the parking lot be city property? Park property? I'm assuming it will be, since...
Yes. No, and it's for park use, joint park use, as well as the use of the Variety Health facility as well. As they've moved into that old school property and begun to enact some of their programs, their need for parking has expanded some. We do have need for parking for the park, for the different amenities that we're putting in there, and so this will serve as a joint parking. But these improvements that we're building are clearly on the park property and will be park-owned, but Variety is just offering to participate some in the financing of the improvements. I think as well, because they see as kind of an adjunct to their health care provision, having some fitness-related activities as well that can be done in the park, and so like the walking trail that we're building and the playground and those types of things, I think are seen by them as enhancements to their health care programs as well. But it will be on the park and for... Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. None of it will be exclusive for them. It's just overflow. Well, we'll still only take care of the portion that's on our property. They will be responsible for everything else, the old parking lot that was associated in there with the school, as well as the school building itself.
Hi, my name is Jeff Butler. I'm a planner with the Planning Department, and we just wanted to give this group an overview and a description of what we're up to and what you can expect to see with regard to the city's comprehensive plan in the future. So this is what we're calling Plan OKC, and I'm not sure what everybody's familiarity is with the comprehensive plan, but it's a city document that captures all of our broad kind of goals and policies. And we recognize that the plan right now is kind of insufficient for our needs, and so we're in the process of updating it. It's a big deal. It doesn't happen that often, and so we've got a lot of resources directed at it, and we're excited about it. But the plan is adopted by the Planning Commission, accepted by the City Council, and it guides, its principal function is to guide land use development. But it is comprehensive in that it addresses a lot of the functions of the city and tries to bring those together into kind of a cohesive plan. Comprehensive plan is not a specific project. It's not zoning. It's not a maintenance plan. It's not code enforcement. It's, again, just a policy document, a broad policy document, somewhat visionary, kind of says where we want to go in the future with the city, and we get a lot of public involvement. We do research, we do surveys, and we see what people are interested in doing, maybe what we lack, where we need to go. This is a kind of a standard presentation, and we just usually show this to indicate the size of the city, and which is unique. Not a lot of people, not a lot of cities are this big in terms of land area, and it presents us with some unique challenges because we have an urban center. We also have areas that are decidedly rural. As I said before, this doesn't happen too often. The last city plan update was in 2000, but that was just an update of the old plan, which was completed in 77. So you can count on one hand the number of plans that we've done since we've been a city. So it is a big deal, and we started about a year ago, actually probably more like a year and a half ago, and we expect it to go for through 2012. This slide just gives you a little bit of background. We've grown in our population from 1977 to 2009. We grew by 41%. But we tend to be consuming more than we are growing. So water treated has grown by 58%. The utility service area has grown by 63%. But we like our large lots, and we like to develop land, and that's gone up by a disproportionate amount, 97%. Our lane miles have gone up quite a bit as well, 122%. So you can see that we have we've done a lot of growing, a lot of developing, and we're trying to address what the impact of this growth is. If we need to do some things differently. Within the context of our economy, the environment, and the community, trying to balance those three elements so that we have a healthy city for our citizens. This is some research we did a couple months ago. We wanted to see, based on that growth pattern that you saw, we wanted to see what was happening with our cost of service. Is it costing us more to provide services to our citizens? And we suspected that it was, so we went and looked at the old city budgets, and it turns out that after you account for inflation, that we are spending, our operating budget is 42% more than it was in the late 70s, and that's taken into account. We're not including maps or anything like that that's new services. So it would appear, and this is borne out by studies done elsewhere, that our development patterns seem to be more costly. Now I just wanted to talk briefly about some of the things that the plan will address. I alluded to the environment earlier. Our natural habitat is important, obviously. We've lost a lot of tree covers. We've urbanized. Our water quality is always a concern that we need to stay on top of, as well as our air quality. We struggle more and more with that as the years go by. And this year in particular, we're failing some standards, I understand. Community. You've probably seen in the newspapers that we don't rank so well in terms of lifestyle, in terms of public health. Bottom of the list on some of those measurements. And so we're looking at our land use patterns in particular. Maps is a step forward in providing sidewalks and trails. But we want to look at it comprehensively and see what else we can do in our development patterns to improve health, make the city more walkable, and things of that nature. We also are looking at community appearance. We have several design districts, as you're aware, and we'll look and see where the community needs to go in terms of appearance and also art, culture, and history. These are the elements of the plan. Typically, a comprehensive plan is broken down into elements, and there's overlap between these various subjects, but we have to write the plan in some way and organize it in some way. So this is how we've chosen to do it, and I'll go through these individually for you. Sustain OKC is the land use element, and it'll address land use development, subdivisions, what land uses should go where, maybe how we can tweak our existing policies and codes to grow a little bit smarter. The Sustain OKC that's where all the elements meet. There's a lot of overlap there. Connect OKC is the transportation element, so that will include not only roads but also transit, trails. As I mentioned, we see that as a critical part of becoming a healthier city. So some of those pictures you see on the bottom there, we're hoping to see more of in the future, and we've got a lot of input from citizens We've presented this presentation to well over 1,000 people in various groups, and so we're excited about the amount of input and the quality of input that we're getting, that we expect to continue to get. Green OKC is the environmental element. So this will look at ways that we can make the city healthier in terms of the ecosystems, but also a healthier environment for humans. Live OKC is the neighborhoods or communities element. We'll look at all the communities. We've kind of divided up the city into over 30 different areas that are somewhat unique and that we can define as recognizable neighborhoods or communities. And we'll compare and contrast those and see where we might have deficiencies and what we can do to improve specific areas. And this includes anything from, distance to grocery stores to walkability, just to make sure that we're fair and equitable in what we do. Enrich OKC is the community design element. There are a lot of good things happening in the city. We want to make sure that momentum carries forward. So we'll look at our design districts, maybe what we can do to encourage that momentum, make sure that it happens maybe in other areas as well. Because this is an important part of Oklahoma City's identity, and a lot of people really appreciate this and can identify with these aesthetically pleasing developments and art. Play OKC will be the Parks and Recreation element, so we'll look at parks and open space of all types and see what improvements can be made and how to proceed there. And finally, Strengthen OKC is economic development, and that'll look at job creation, what things we can do in conjunction with the Chamber of Commerce to look at that, improve job creation. We're already actually working on a study with the Chamber of Commerce. We've had some consultants in town recently to look at our industrial employment office land. We've got a problem with that. We don't really have any fantastic sites, and so we're losing some. We feel like we're at a competitive disadvantage there, and so we're working to fix that. The Strengthen will look at all types of things with that in mind, and also to ensure that the city is fiscally maintained, or that we have policies that are fiscally sustainable. One more, actually, of the core elements. The Serve OKC will look at police, fire, and all the various public services that we utilize and that we provide, recognizing that that's for a lot of people the most critical and the most important public service. Go OKC is the element that will outline and provide direction for the implementation of the plan, and that will be an important, probably the most important of the plan, getting things done. And finally, just to wrap up, the Plan OKC process, well, as I mentioned, it's a big process. It takes a little while. There's a lot of analysis and a lot of public involvement, a lot of stakeholders that need to give input. And so by the time we get all that done, it's going to be 2012, by the time we have this new plan finalized and adopted. And this is how people can and have been getting involved. We've had a lot of different opportunities around the internet. We're just starting our stakeholder groups in early November. And if you guys are interested in that, take a look at our website and sign up for that. We would love to have you. We have stakeholder groups broken up into different areas of interest, and we'll be meeting at OSU OKC starting November 4th. And those stakeholder groups will receive presentations. They'll have an opportunity to give detailed input as to what recommendations, new policies, new strategies we can do for the plan. So that's all I had for you. Just wanted to give you a brief overview. Are there any questions I can answer? Okay. Well, thank you for your time.
Glad you showed up.